I wish I had like an Enterprise. Well, Enterprise isn't in this show so far. There's no Enterprise F action figures yet, but like I'll be first in line if they start coming out with the Enterprise F toys. So just make it happen, Picard. Anyway,
Don't you
what's up,
mean make it
everybody?
so?
Make it so. We'll keep that in.
Sorry.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Real Time for the Real Everyday Movie Fan. I'm Ryan Murphy,
And I'm James Sheridan.
and today we are giving you our real time review and reaction to episode 4 of 10 uh, Star Trek Picard episodes. So if you can't tell from my reaction, first thing I'm going to say all right off the bat is my complaint about the last two episodes were that episodes 2 and 3 could have easily been combined into one episode. I'm going to go further out on a limb here and say
Yeah.
episodes 2, 3, and 4 could have
Yep.
all been combined into one episode easily.
Yep. And that's part of the big problem with this series is that it's almost half over and we still haven't gotten to the actual plot and still haven't met like half of our characters.
Yeah. To be fair, they never promised us that they'd be in it for the whole thing. They just promised us they'd be in it.
I mean, you pitch like it was pitched, it was presented as, Next Generation season 8 kind of like, I know that's what the fans call it, but like the idea was that this is supposed to be a reunion. They're supposed to be coming together. We're almost halfway through the series and we've seen 3 of them frequently and one guy in one episode and in a cameo. We still haven't seen Geordi whatsoever, and Troy has only been on a screen twice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, can we have the cast, please?
Yeah. And get Brent Spiner back as Lore.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like the whole thing with this episode, it was just a throw. I mean, it was like they're trying to make it more episodic than it should be. Of course, we're watching this from the perspective of if you're gonna make these episodes, like if you watch, 10 episodes of Star Trek Next Generation, they're just 10 different episodes, except where there might be
With
a
the
two-parter,
odd
and then
two-parter, yeah.
where there's part one, then it says part 1 and part 2. Whereas the way this series is working and has worked for the past 2 seasons before it is that it's basically a 10-hour long movie. And if you're going to do it that way, do it that way. And if you only have enough story for 5 or 6 hours, tell 5 or 6 hours worth of a story. Don't fill it up with these filler episodes.
Yeah.
This filler episode was obviously just trying to get out of the black hole. Like, don't have them fall into the black hole. Save yourself an episode.
I mean, the first 3 episodes were basically setting them to fall into the black hole. Then this is them getting out of the black hole. And like you said, episodes 2, 3, and 4 is basically the same dilemma. Facing off against the strike, running away from the strike, getting trapped in the black hole and trying to get out of it. It's all one series of actions. And it's like, did that really need to be a 3-episode arc?
Well, in sort of both to condemn them and to reprieve them a little bit. This episode is also really weird where they just randomly find these life forms inside the black hole, and it's like, oh, that's cool. Look, all right, let's go.
See, to me, that felt like season 1 Trek.
Yeah, but to be at the same time, that was sort of a throwback, even though we're doing this story that should be told more succinctly. If we're going to stretch it out, let's do episodes like that would be kind of like classic Star Trek episodes where we discover a new life form. And it's very kind of like they even pointed out the similarities to Encounter at Farpoint. So there is that. And I sound like I'm being hard on this episode, but this episode actually kind of got me excited because I might just be a glutton for punishment, but I do kind of feel like it's gonna start ramping up. We were kind of mistaken. I thought the whole season was going to be in this nebula. I thought the whole season was going to be this back and forth like Wrath of Khan space battle, cat and mouse game inside the nebula. Now it looks like they're out of the nebula. They might just be going home, like they've escaped for now. And so there. I mean, we thought Geordi. Oh man, everyone thought that Geordi. They even showed like the light turn on in the preview. Yeah. And it was like, oh my God. And that's like, no, that's just a thing inside. Anyway, but Geordi did not save them in this episode, but now they're going to go like back to Earth or back wherever. Maybe they'll get on the Enterprise F there, but there's going to be a little bit more to this series than just running around the nebula, where they're going to go other places and do other things with their old comrades. So I'm looking forward to that.
Which is fine, but I'm still unclear on what the dilemma of this season is. Like, at least if it was stuck in this nebula and we're fighting the Shrike, like we have some understanding of what the stakes are. It still felt drawn out and like unnecessarily just kind of stretched thin. Um, the only interesting thing really about all of this was, I shouldn't say the only, like the one wrinkle that I think makes continuing on from this interesting is the revelation that what's her name was working for some kind of entity, where she like cut the changeling
No,
thing out of
that's
her
she's the
wrist.
changeling. That's not, she's working for the changelings. The only real revelation is that she is herself a changeling.
Yeah. I wasn't
So
sure if she was or not, or like what she would, because I've never seen them like cut parts of themselves off and like have it
yeah, that's brand new and kind
animate
of
by
stupid.
itself. And like I didn't understand what she was doing there, but like the idea that she's working for somebody else, um, which we kind of guessed at, but it's like, okay, at least we have that thread to continue on. Just I don't know, all of it seems so like this feels like such a close off chapter. I don't know what's coming next. I don't know how it all connects. And it's like I think like by 4 episodes in, I should have an idea of what the story is. Within the first 2 seasons, by the second or third episode, you had an understanding of what was going on. Picard has to help what's his name? Data's daughter, after
Mhm.
the first one was murdered, escape these people and unravel the mystery of what's going on with that. Okay, fine. Second season was they're going back in time to stop the future from being changed again. Okay, fine. Neither season worked out great for me, but at least I understood what the premise was early enough on. This one, I understood. I thought the premise was going to be that she's trying to find Jack for some reason, and we've just left her alone in the nebula, presumably to die because her warp core is going critical. We don't actually see her die, so it's entirely possible she'll come back, but they basically leave her for dead, and we don't know if that's going to continue on. We know that she's working for somebody else, but like I don't know, the connective tissue to me just doesn't work. Um, and I'm like this I'm shitting on it because I still have these like series wide sort of critiques about how they write this show. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, this season hasn't gotten much better, in my opinion. This episode was much better overall, but that's because it was resolution to everything that they had set up in the first 3 episodes.
Mhm.
We finally solved the problem of how we're going to get out of the black hole with some ingenious sort of like um techie like stuff that they usually like. It was a great throwback to the old series where they would just like kind of bullshit their way into like, oh, we'll just open up this something or other device and trap this ionic energy and use it to power the warp core. And even pulling in like Shaw to be the grease monkey, I like the setup of that. I thought that was interesting. I thought it added to his character and gave him something to do other than be a fucking asshole the entire time. um I love the fact there was no Raffi in this plot because I don't care about her story. This was entirely within the scope of this ship. And like, I kind of wish the first episodes had been that way, except that they decided to stick the revelation of the changelings in that storyline. So they had to
Mhm.
build up to it. And it's like, this episode was so much better for not having all of that stuff in there. And I was so glad to see that. Um, I love that, like, again, everybody was doing something. Everybody had a purpose at this point. Um, Crusher was the one who noticed, the timing of things based on like contractions during birth and all that stuff, and that like basically the galaxy was giving birth to a new species, or at least a new group of this ongoing
Space
species,
babies.
the space babies, and like recognized the pattern of it, and that something was happening, and then. Someone else realized that, if we trap this energy or ride this wave, we could use it to charge the ship. And it's like, this is old Trek. This is the stuff that was great in TNG, where like they would have a problem, the writers would set them up with an impossible situation, and they would just kind of like science their way out of it. Even if the science didn't make sense, at least in
Mhm.
terms of like the way they structured it makes sense. It doesn't have to make
Mhm.
scientific sense. It just has to make plot sense. Okay, we put out a giant net to capture this energy and use it to power our engines. Sure, that works enough for me. Now we have to go and actually physically do that, and there's this ticking time bomb. Great classic Trek stuff. I've missed this in this series. This was the stuff that like made this stuff great, and it's like I'm glad we're finally getting there, but it's I don't know. It's frustrating that it's taken this long to get to that level of writing and sort of classic Trek stuff. And um again, I don't know where it's going next. And it's like I wish they had left us on some sort of like leave a little cliffhanger at the end about like not just them escaping, but set up what comes next so that like there's a reason for me to want to tune in next week.
Yeah, well, I think they did in a way, but first I want to talk about I'm not one big complaint I have is I don't think they're trying to give characters reasons to do things that I don't think are good enough for them to do it. We talked last week about sort of having a difference of opinion on how justified Crusher was in keeping her keeping a man from his son. And I'd still just I have no sympathy for that whatsoever. Such a shitty thing to do to a human being. But the this episode they're like, well, Jack chose not to meet him. Well, why? And we find out in this episode that he went to meet him and asked him as a stranger, well, did you have a like some stranger comes up to you, do you ever have any family?
That
Oh,
was a
stop,
weird
it's all the
scene.
family I need. My father doesn't love me. I must go now. Not like that's no, come on. Like that if that's all Jack needed to never contact his father was some one-off comment to some stranger who was bothering him quite much at that point.
Yeah.
And he really kind of wanted to get people away from him.
And
And
wasn't even
that's the
really
reason.
part of the conversation. He was just off to the
Yeah.
side and then make an offhanded comment, and like the crowd literally had to part to like show him there for him to
Yeah.
actually make a comment. And then for a minute there, I thought they were in like the 10 forward in the
Yeah.
uh on the hollow deck, because they
Yeah.
established that they go there for them to have a drink and whatnot. I thought maybe for a moment that's what it was like they made us think it was a flashback to, when he was an admiral on Earth, and all these like cadets are coming up to him asking. I figured maybe it was the crew at one point, because they reestablished the hollow deck in 10 forward, and we know Jack is there. So when he pipes up, but then like he's looking so much younger, and it's like, I don't know, that scene was weird, and I don't understand what their purpose was other than to create drama that like I don't think you needed to create that drama. I don't think it's very engaging, but
Mhm.
um, I don't know. I again, I'm finding the writing in this series to be very imbalanced, and it's perplexing.
Well, the other thing was, so we found out why Shaw dislikes Picard so
Yes, I
much.
love that.
And
That was the good part of the
but
writing.
one note I had was just when you think Shaw couldn't be more of a dick, he brings up Wolf 359. Uh, and it's like it's such an irrational thing to hate Picard for. I mean, no one with any degree of rationality could or would actually hate him for that or not realize that he's as much of a victim as anyone of that. And they show very much in this episode that the vast majority of people admire him, admonish him, mob over him.
But you're
It's only
expecting him to be rational over a traumatic
right.
event. That doesn't happen. People are not rational about traumatic events, especially when he's sitting there watching all of the people that he's worked with and he cares about die, and them being picked individually. Like only 10 of you can survive, which is a shitty plot line, but like if that's what happened, it's like I understand why he would be angry and why he would hold resentment. And yes, it's not Picard's fault, but does that really change the fact that, what happened was what happened? Like, I, Picard is a victim, but at the same time, it was him who did this stuff, and like he wasn't conscious of it. But it's still like you don't get that excuse when you're drunk. You're so responsible for your actions, and like I don't hold him responsible, but I can see why Shaw would, kind of thing. And I can see why he would be angry after all these years watching everyone that he works with and cares about die needlessly for what at that time was his enemy, and then everyone welcomes him back with open arms. I can see why you would be bitter and resentful for that. That said, I did love that plot line. Like that was a great little twist to throw in there, because as we've been discussing, how important the Borg are to Picard's story and Picard's trauma and
Right.
all that stuff, and understanding like Shaw is not a nice person, but like at least he has sort of a reason why he's so standoffish with Picard. Even if it doesn't make sense for you, it makes sense for Shaw. And I think
Yeah.
that's an interesting that was such a great twist. And I was actually kind of excited when it happened, because I'm like, now I understand you. I don't like you, but at least I understand you.
Well, and before I even knew that he was going to have this really deeply personal story about Wolf 359 when he just first brought it up. It's just like, good Lord, he's bringing up that. Could he be
Yeah.
more of a dick? Like, just like when he starts talking, he's like, well, your dad was at Wolf 359. I was like, oh fuck. Uh, but but yeah, I don't think it's incidental that they keep bringing this stuff up. I still think the Borg are going to make an appearance. In fact, I believe that now more than ever because I think that conversation is not just to give Shaw a storyline. I think that conversation is meant to continue to bring the Borg into your mind so
Mhm.
that when they do show up, and he even says the phrase, which I loved when he says it. He says, don't let that little shit show on the Stargazer fool you. The real Borg are still out there."
Yeah.
I think that's foreshadowing. I really do. And we've talked about on the show, the theory that the reason they're after Jack is because he carries some sort of Borg DNA in him from being Picard's son. Uh, no other former Borg having ever
Procreated.
reproduced before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I still think I think that's the case more now than ever before with the ending of this episode. He's hearing some woman's voice say, "Find me."
That
Now,
was weird.
uh,
That felt like something out of
I
Stranger
think
Things.
I think that's what it is. I really do. And I think that we're going to see some sort of Borg Dominion alliance or something like that. But the actress who
Oh,
played the
that
Borg,
would be
there have been
fucking
three
scary.
actresses. Yeah, there have been three actresses who have played the Borg Queen. The one who did in Picard season two just died about a month
Yeah.
ago.
She's the
But
second
we've
one to die, I
never.
believe.
No, the first two are Alice Krige and Susanna Thompson. They're both
Didn't Alice
very much
Krieg die? I
not
thought
that
she
I'm
died of
well.
cancer or something.
I look it up while I'm talking, but but my point is that Annie Wershing died, but there's no. I mean, we don't. She very well could have filmed scenes for Picard season three in secret. I mean, people do it all the time. Um, so yeah, I think that's what she did. I think that we're gonna have more of that, and I think that it's gonna show up, which is wonderful for me. No, Alice Krige is still alive, 68
Yep,
years
she is
old.
still alive.
But I really look forward to that because we've talked about. I've said it every review we've done, and I'll say it again in this review. The Borg are to Picard what the Joker is to Batman. It's that great, one of those great, yin yang rivalries, hero and villain, in
See, I,
in in
I, I
history.
still, I still say that Q is his Luther or Joker because there's more of an adversarial like back and forth between them
But there's
and sort of
also
like
like
a
a
mutual like
friendship, like a really weird respect and friendship. I mean, they end it in season two with them hugging
yeah.
it out.
But
So.
I still think that like that one's a little more personal, whereas this one is more of a trauma, where he
Mhm.
was victimized and like I can't think of an analog to it, but they've obviously done away with Q. Q is not coming back. Q is done. At least the John
Yes.
Delancey Q. Um, but all we have left is the Borg, and it would be nice to see some resolution on that. Although I feel like we kind of got a bit of resolution on that in First Contact, where he defeats the Queen and kind of can put like his trauma behind him a little bit. But
Mhm.
it will be interesting to see if they do come back, how that will affect them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and I think I hope next week, Jordy. If we, I was looking at the, where you can put your cursor on the bottom of the screen and look ahead. I was doing that this episode to see if Jordy was in it. I was like, fuck, still no
Yeah.
Jordy. If there's no Jordy in episode five, we riot. And I was the one, I was thinking about this because last week we were talking like, I was like, I'd be fine if they're only in three episodes because three episodes is the length of a movie. And if all we get is the equivalent of a movie with these guys back again, I'll be sated. And I was watching this episode and I thought, I was wrong. I'm starting to get pissed.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I have another buddy who's really into Trek and he's been loving the series too. Um we have arguments about lore and continuity because he's into like a lot of, like he's really into Marvel like I am, he's really into Naruto like I am. And we get really, really deep into lore and have these big long arguments. And he keeps poking me and bugging me about this. And I'm like, you don't want to know my answer, dude. I am not liking this series so far. The first two seasons were not great. The first season was better than the second season. I'll give it that.
Mhm.
But it wasn't great. Second season was really bad. This season is not turning out great so far. This episode notwithstanding, but this episode was like, again, the denouement of a whole bunch of plot threads that they've developed so far, and they've tied most of them off. There's like a few little lingering things that we have to deal with, but like in terms of like what we set up in the first 3 episodes, this kind of concludes a lot of that. And I don't know where we're gonna go from here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm frustrated because I want to love this show so much. Everyone I know, especially everyone who was a TNG fan, was so excited for this show, and I grew up on TNG too. I love the TNG crew, and I was looking forward to seeing them together again. We're not getting that. We're getting them in like
I know
disparate little things, and it's like, okay, if it feels like I don't know if you've ever watched Arrested Development, but Arrested Development had 3 seasons on TV, all great. Third season was a little less great, but the first 2 were just outstanding, well-written comedies. And then it was canceled and taken off the air. And then a couple years later, they came back and did a 4th season directly with Netflix. But the problem was that all of the cast members had gone off and started other projects and other shows and were kind of like not able to like fully reunite. So the entire 4th season is told almost like episodically, where like each individual character gets their own episode, and other characters will show up in the background and show like how the plot lines interconnect and all that stuff. And it's kind of like craftily written around the fact that like they couldn't get everybody all at once, but it's like, this isn't the show that I fell in love with, and I understand what you're doing, but like the fact that it's just like piecemeal, the fact it's so piecemeal just feels like it was disappointing. And it's like, I'm starting to feel like this is it, where it's like, okay, well, these are the Crusher episodes, and then she'll disappear, and then we'll get the Worf episodes, and then he'll disappear, and then we'll get the Troy and Riker episodes, and then they'll disappear, and then we'll get the Geordi episodes, and then he'll disappear. And
there's scenes in the trailer. The scene that set me off in the trailer, the scene that made me go was the scene when they're all at the conference table.
That's what I'm waiting for, is a reunion, and it's like we're 4 episodes in, and that's not happened yet. And
but
it's like,
I mean,
is that only going to happen like the 8th episode?
You know, I always apologize for bringing this up because I know it's like I bring it up ad nauseum. I know we're never going to agree on it, but Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Okay, a lot of people's complaint, not so much my complaint. My complaint has a lot more to do with the overall story and how it is just kind of destroys whatever. But a lot of people's complaint about that trilogy is the fact, like I was just talking to Aaron Shonkey of Bat in the Sun, and he's like, you had one job. Bring back the 3 and show them together. That should have been hour 1 in the story room. Like, how are we going to get these 3 back together? And they never do it. Like, so that was a lot of people's complaint about The Force Awakens. It's like, I'm fine with Han Solo dying, but fuck, man, he never even sees Luke. Like, so, but that's not going to happen. We're going to get the conference room scene. We're gonna, it's gonna be the best scene in the show, I think.
But when are we gonna get it? Are we gonna get it in episode 5 now, or are we gonna get it in episode 9 right before they go off to the big finale?
Maybe 10.
Thing? Like, is the 10. Reunion is this all building to the reunion? Which, if that's the case, they should have let me know that, because I want to be prepared for that. But like now, I'm starting to prepare for that mentally, because it's like we're almost halfway down the series.
Like you said, it's tying up a lot of plot lines. We're out of the nebula. Who knows? We don't know what's gonna come next.
Yeah,
but it's gonna. I was wondering how Worf was ever gonna get into this, because he's off like somewhere completely else. But now I think it won't be episode 9. We'll
it's obviously
we'll get there.
The changelings are obviously the big bad now. We're obviously going to move into a story about the changelings, but it's like you only introduced that in episode 3. And barely kind of pay it off in episode 4. Although I did really love the changeling stuff in this episode with like, again, it's classic Trek writing of catching the changeling off guard by having her show up as LaForge's daughter, saying, greatest engineer in Starfleet history. I'm his daughter, so I know how to fix stuff. It's like, my dad's a horticulturalist. I don't know shit about plants. That doesn't mean anything. Like, fuck off. And then like catching her by having like by establishing earlier on that she calls her 7. She calls her Commander 7 rather than Commander Henson. And I love that. And the fact that she got to kind of throw that into Shaw's face, I thought that was like a page right out of like, it felt like something right out of Voyager.
But also just going off of that, I mean, that was one of the things you gave Shaw a lot of shit for is not calling, not addressing 7 as much like as she wants to be addressed. But now you also see the reason for that. he's deeply traumatized by the Borg. He wants nothing to do
Yeah.
with with the
No,
Borg. He
I
certainly doesn't want to call his first officer 7 of 9. So
it doesn't have to
doesn't
call her
make it
seven of
right.
nine, just
Just
call her seven. That's her
yeah,
name now, and that's how she identifies. And that's my point, is that like it's if that's how she identifies, respect that. He is intentionally disrespecting her. And I don't care if he is traumatized by the Borg. I don't care if you do hate her. She is your colleague. Show her respect as the captain. Like
sure.
respect goes both ways kind of thing. And I like that she kind of like gives him that knowing glance when she refers to that.
But I also
And
like
he
the line like, "We got off on the wrong foot. You were smart, you were capable, you're a natural leader," is something I would say if I was a change.
he can't help but be a prick. I want to knock the guy's nose in.
Yeah.
Ah, I
So
don't actually. I'm not a violent person, but he just drives me up the wall.
yeah,
And I know he's written that way, but
he's not
it
bad. He's
gets
just
my
written
goat.
that way.
Yeah, it's not even that, like he my it's not that he's not bad. My point was that he's written that way, that he's meant to be annoying and he's meant to irritate me,
Yeah.
and I'm falling for it, but goddamn is he irritating. They're doing a good job and it pisses me off.
Well, okay, so we're to sort of wrap up our thoughts. It's taken us 4 episodes, but hopefully this is where it starts to get good. Hopefully, episode 5 is we can hope, James, and maybe they'll probably be releasing a scene very shortly, right? Because that was very early last week that they released the scene from this episode. So
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully it shows Jordy
I,
showing
I was
up.
gonna say, please be Jordy. Please be the scene between Jordy and Laura or something like that. Like give
Yeah.
me some meat, give me a promise that we're gonna get
Yeah, we
into
still have
something
to have
else. And
Laura and Moriarty show up. There's a lot more to
yeah,
unpack here.
that's part of what I was thinking about. Like we're 4 episodes into a 10 episode season. That's 40% of the show is done, and we haven't gotten
Oh,
to a lot of the big teases.
no. Okay. I don't
But
know. This is not a spoiler. Eh. There was a review, and the reviewer, it was actually a scathing review. This guy, but he said I only saw the first 6 episodes. So I'm going to review the first 6 episodes, and he hated them. I mean, we're being kind of rather nice. He was like, "This fucking sucks." But he was talking about lore. So spoiler alert, we will see lore before in
okay, fair
episodes 5 or
enough.
6.
And
So
I don't want it to seem like I'm shitting all over this. Like I want to like this. I
oh
don't
yeah.
want to. I don't go into things wanting to hate them, with the exception of Avatar. Um, don't get me started. I just don't get me started. I want to like this. I'm trying to like this, and they're giving me many reasons not to like it. This episode was a vast improvement over the previous ones, but
Mhm.
again, that's entirely due to the fact that it's resolution. It's they're coming to the climax of this story that they've built over 4 episodes now. Um, when you come to the climax, there's better pacing, there's better storytelling. We're starting to get conclusions. We're starting to get characters not be complete fucking dumbasses and come up with actual solutions to shit, rather than just saying, throw every weapon you have at it. What the fuck is that going to do? They're more powerful. I did that rant already.
Yeah.
That was so fucking stupid. Still pisses me off.
All right.
I want to like this. I want to.
Yes,
That's the
and
bottom
we're
line.
still we're rooting for it. We still have six
Yes,
episodes left. Starting next week, it could be like, fuck man, like we know we're gonna see Laura. We know we're gonna see Laura before in episode 6 at the latest. So I'm excited. I really am. And I that ending with Jack, you say I wish we had more of a cliffhanger. That ending with Jack, I'm like, it's
I
the
did
fucking
forget about
Borg.
that part.
It's the
Yeah.
fucking Borg. Fucking Borg. And if it's not the Borg, I'm gonna be so bummed out. But
To be
yeah,
fair, when I said I wanted more of a cliffhanger, I did forget about that little tidbit. But it's like
yeah.
I don't really care about Jack. I only care about him insofar as like what he means to the plot and like what he means to other characters. And even at this point, like he's not really that much of a son to Picard, and like okay, he's kind of nice to Crusher, but you haven't endeared me to this character yet, so I don't really care. So if he's having
Yeah.
like 11 type flashbacks and visions of the upside down, then um, I mean that's what it looked like to me. Is
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. I'm hoping for better, but my optimism is waning.
We'll see. Hopefully we see a scene pretty soon that'll show
Yeah.
us Jordy. Yeah, that'll do us for today, folks. What did you think of the first 4 episodes of Star Trek Picard? How much do you hate Shaw? Do you think it's the Borg? There's also, it's been confirmed we will see more cameos and appearances besides the ones that have been advertised. So
Okay.
there's more fan service coming, and I'm that's very exciting idea to me. So yes, let us know your comments, and please like, so share, subscribe. And until next time, I'm Ryan Murphy,
And I'm James Sheridan
and thank you for keeping it real.
with ReelTime. Good night.
Engage.